Tori is joining us from home. So Neil Young is reportedly fed up with Spotify because he reportedly sent a letter to the streaming service demanding his music be removed. He's upset over vaccine misinformation shared on Joe Rogan's podcast. The letter reportedly said he wanted all of his music off their platform because Spotify is spreading fake information about vaccines, potentially causing death to those who believe the, quote, disinformation. Okay, so Jeff, what do you think about Neil's stance on this, and do you think that Spotify has an obligation?
Here's the thing. I like Neil Young. I don't like all of his songs. I like Joe Rogan. I don't like, quote unquote, all of his songs either, right?
Right.
You have to have some discernment. I don't think this is a good move for Neil Young. Even though I like him, I feel like Spotify, when it comes down to a business, and not a network, by the way. A network has some obligations to make sure things are this or that. Joe Rogan has the right to say whatever he wants. As Neil Young does too. But to put yourself and say, hey, it's my way or the highway, that's a tough position to be in, right, for Spotify, and they're going to have to make a choice. But my position is, I like Joe Rogan, like I said, with discernment. I like what he has to say because, speaking of networks, you're not allowed to say things that Joe Rogan says on his podcast, what networks have to say. And I know me and Tori got into this a little bit earlier, and I love the debates that we had. Yeah, Tori, so my stance is I like hearing Joe Rogan because you hear the other side. And if we're talking about the vaccine, which is what this is all about, I'm triple vaxxed, but yet I'm on TV and I have an obligation to stay within my lane. But I'm not okay. It's not okay for me to ask, hey, should I take vitamin D because 86% of the people that were in the ICU were vitamin D deficient? Isn't that another route we could take? Or maybe overweight people are more the people that COVID is affecting. We're not allowed to say things like that on television, even though I just did. So I do appreciate Joe Rogan's stance in some terms when he does mention things like this.
Okay, let me first off say I completely agree with you. I love diverse opinions, and I love things that I disagree with to be on my social media and on my radar, right? But you have to understand the specificity of this, and it is really specific, and it's very important our audience understands this too. There is a difference between something I disagree with and something I really stand behind and you don't, and a misinformation that can cause dangerous repercussions with someone with a platform. So for instance, Joe Rogan had on Dr. Malone, okay? He was banned from Twitter, but he thinks millions of people have been hypnotized to have the vaccine. Having someone like that on, and clearly that is wrong information, empirically wrong, is something that could cause death to certain people because they believe it so strongly. As Spotify is a private company, just like Twitter has banned many people, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why won't Spotify have the same standards as Twitter and say we will not allow these lies to be spewed on our private platform?
Well, please.
No, go. I want everyone involved in this conversation, even though I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of talking about Twitter standards, that's where I'm going to have to push back on you, Tori, because I wonder about Twitter standards. Yes, they banned Trump, but they banned him after he had lost the election. They rode him and his followers in the spotlight that he brought to Twitter with his daily tweets, hourly tweets. They rode that for 4 years until it was no longer tenable for them after they had extracted all the money that they could. So if they had done something proactively, then that would be a different thing. So with that said, I don't know if those are standards. I think this is no longer as financially lucrative, so we can move on from this person.
I disagree with you. Jack Dorsey spent a lot of time contemplating whether or not to do it, and he finally agreed. If you've crossed too many clauses that we have in our fine print as a private company, no shoes, no service. Therefore, you're out. If Twitter has that standard for people, why doesn't Spotify have the same exact standard? And for Neil Young, it's not just going to be Neil Young. It's going to be a domino effect of strong artists like a Taylor Swift. And like these people, they're going to say, unless you take this down, you can't represent us. Watch it.
But Tori, here's my thing, and I want to be careful with banning people because then you don't get their voice. Joe Rogan is a voice for the other side. He has the #1 podcast in the country. A lot of people follow him. A lot of people believe in what he says, but they're not allowed to say it on television. They're not allowed to write it in their social media feed for the fear
because it's wrong.
You will be fired. You will lose your job. You'll lose your livelihood.
It's false,
just because. But I'm not allowed to question vaccines. Again, I'm triple vaxxed. I'm with the program. I'm down with the Fauci train. You hear me? You hear me out there?
I'm down with the Fauci
But here's
train.
the thing. If I say, hey, does this affect me, 40-year-olds, that, again, if I'm 5'11", over 200 pounds, technically obese if you want to look at the charts. But how does this affect me? We're not a one-size-fits-all country, whether it be your size or whether it be your political opinion. We can't start silencing people. That's where I have the problem, not about who said what.